Welcome back to the Fire Break. I'm Steve Wolf. As you probably know by now, the Fire Break is sponsored by Team Wildfire, looking to reduce fire fatalities and property losses from wildfires. I've got with me today a guy with like so much experience, you wouldn't believe it. I don't understand how he has any hair left. I've got Chief Jeff Bowman here with us. He's the trifecta, right? Okay. He was the fire chief for Anaheim. Then he was the fire chief for San Diego, and then he was the fire chief for Orange County. So talk about a guy who knows fires and has had to deal with probably untold politics, right? Jeff, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm well, Steve. Thank you very much.
Just tell me, what is it like to have been a chief in three departments?
Well, I get that question a lot. I was with Anaheim for 29 years, so I was the chief of an agency wherein I knew everyone. I mean,
Okay.
I grew up with them. They knew me. They knew what to expect. It wasn't that difficult being the chief there. When I went to San Diego, so an organization 5 times larger than Anaheim, not knowing a soul, it's hard to walk in and really set the tone for who you are as an individual and understand who I'm working with as individuals so that collectively we could create an agency that can move forward, which is why they hired me. They wanted change. They wanted me to bring new ideas and new concepts to them.
Wait, Jeff,
And
I'm blowing a fuse here for a second. Hang on. You're
okay,
telling me that you worked with a fire agency that wanted change?
uh,
I just want to
actually,
make sure I'm hearing that right.
the city leaders wanted change.
Okay. All
And
right.
truthfully, the firefighter union in San Diego, the union president told me the exact same thing. He said, "We want change." And so, yes, that was rather unique, and I welcome that. But it's hard when you walk into an agency and don't know anybody. You don't know who's being honest with you. You don't know who's trying to undermine you. So it takes time, and you have to have a lot of patience, and you have to understand humans. And anyway, that is much more difficult, or was much more difficult than my job in Anaheim. But I figured it out pretty quickly, and I knew who to trust, and we did some great things. And the same happened in Orange County. I knew some of them because Anaheim was in Orange County. So I had familiar faces and people that I'd actually worked with a few times. But the same thing, they didn't so much want change. The firefighter union did, and the management folk really didn't. They liked it the way things were. Change was necessary, though, and as you know, change is probably the hardest thing to
Right.
enact in any agency because a lot of people like the way things are and fear what might happen to them in a world of change.
I thought the popular expression with the fire service was the only two things the fire service doesn't like are the way things are and change.
That's pretty doggone close.
Yeah. So, okay, so you did a little bit of work in the fire business there. It sounds like you put in, the equivalent of a couple hundred years of work in building and modernizing and socializing the concepts of what you wanted to advance in the fire service. But then you moved on to some really important work uh, as a vintner, right? You have a
Yes.
winery where you make some pretty darn good wine, is the rumor.
It's
Uh,
not bad. And it's
yeah.
really just a small family operation that my wife and I do the majority of. We are actually in a partnership with a winery, so they make the wine, we grow the grapes, and we participate in all phases of the winemaking and the sales of the wine. But it's fun. It's an avocation. It's something we wanted to do in retirement.
A passion. What a nice, hopefully more calm thing to be doing
You know,
than
I
running
always tell
fire
people
departments.
the grapes never argue with me. They just let me do whatever I want. So it's kind of a different lifestyle for me.
So there's really no reason for you to be a screaming chief when you are working with the grapes, even though that's the name of your wine.
That's correct. I get to do it at my leisure and my pleasure, and truly, I still have a boss besides my wife, and that's Mother Nature. She dictates what happens in that vineyard, and we just try to work around her.
So, yeah, well, I think the hierarchy is your wife and then the weather, right?
Yes, you're right.
Okay, don't get that wrong or you'll be in trouble.
If I want to stay married, I'll keep that in order.
That's right. Well, one of the things that we heard about a lot as a consequences of the wildfire, uh, as they sweep through California repeatedly, is the impact on the grapes, right?
Yeah.
And right, they're dealing with what they call, I believe, smoke taint, which means my grapes smell like wildfire. Um,
Well, when people take a glass of wine, the last thing they want to taste is smoke. Many wineries in the north, Napa and Sonoma, who've been impacted by huge wildfire and the smoke, there have been years where they made no wine because their entire crop was tainted by the smoke smell. And the winemaker did not want to ruin the reputation of their label by producing a bad wine, so they didn't produce any. If that happens to me, it's no big deal. It's, okay, I lost a year. But when you do it for your livelihood, that is a big deal. And it's still a big problem. And I think there are many people trying to figure out a solution, one of whom is me. And we're going to talk about this product in a little bit, I'm sure, but I'll mention it then about my thoughts
okay.
about the product and smoke taint.
Okay. Now, is it possible that smoke taint in the grapes is really a marketing problem?
No,
That you just that smoke infused wines are an acquired taste, and depending on what was burning at the time, that imparts its own special fragrances and tastes to the vine, to the
well,
wine.
that would be a great question for a very seasoned winemaker. I've already told you I'm not the winemaker, but I work with him as he's doing it. But I will promise you that there are very few winemakers who would look at it as a marketing opportunity. The only time I could think it might be fun is if you were smoking a cigar and you wanted to add to that smoky taste of your cigar, maybe, but not really. Those wines, those high end wines, are made for people in high end restaurants for the most part who want to have or savor a really good glass of wine because they're spending a lot of money for it.
I see.
So I don't see a future in smoke tainted wine. The future, I think, is going to be figure out how to keep that taint out of the grapes and thus out of the wine.
And I'll ask you about that in a moment, how you're doing that. But first, I wanted to ask, what your takeaways were from Three Chiefdoms.
Hmm.
Uh, I would think that you would be like the ideal go-to resource for any new fire chief, having done it so many times in different jurisdictions. What advice would you give a new fire chief starting out in
You
terms of
know,
how to build?
that is a really good question, and I will tell you as a retired guy. Okay, so I was 16 years in Anaheim, 4 in San Diego, and 3 in Orange County. And I didn't even tell you, I did 1 year in the Oceanside Fire Department. They asked me to come help them find a chief and clean up some of their issues. And I was there for a year. So you're talking over 20 years. The average fire chief tenure average in a large city environment is 3 years. And I've got over 20. So I learned a lot of lessons over those years. I kept really good files. My garage is loaded with boxes of really valuable information that a new fire chief could use, but nobody asks. Um, it's
Really?
it's beyond me. I cannot figure it out. I've helped a few who've reached out, and I've offered my assistance to folks. And I think it's kind of funny. I think egos get in the way, that they believe if they ask for help that they're not worthy of their job. I, for one, never shied away from asking for help. If I just think it's easier to take information that others use successfully or unsuccessfully. You discard the bad and you keep the good, and maybe refine the good till it's what you want. But I have lots and lots of lessons. I just don't get asked any questions. So I'm okay with that. I think it's a shame
It
because
is a
I could be
shame.
helpful.
Maybe they could turn the ego thing around instead of seeing it as like asking for help, taking the ego position. I want to be the best fire chief I can, and I'm going to appeal to all the resources I can to help me get there.
That would describe me more than maybe they in their approach.
I
Um,
see.
I always wanted to try and be the best I could be, and none of us is capable of having the answers to everything. And why not pick the mind of someone who's done it for a long time? The key lessons are there, and it wouldn't take me an hour to share the key lessons with them.
Really?
I don't think. I mean, I'm
Okay.
talking major categories
Yeah.
of things that
Right.
I would look out for.
Okay.
But we'll see. Maybe this podcast will generate some interest. Who knows?
Yeah, it is already because I would like to do a whole hour with you just on chiefing, if that's a verb. And
We can make it one.
all right, great. And then let's. Yeah, I don't know if you need to refer to the file boxes, or if it's all right up there in your head from what you've learned. So I'm going to reach out to you after we're done today. We're going to schedule a whole hour on how to be the best chief you can be.
Okay, sounds good.
And then that would bring up another question: is you've got a I don't know what the quantity is. It's slightly larger than a crap load of wisdom accumulated about how to chief and how to run, a fire department. Um, and I imagine you're not the only one. There's accumulated wisdom in a lot of people who have done this. And yet, as you say, there's not a mechanism for getting that wisdom to the next cadre of chiefs. So I'd love to be able to put that probe in your head and download everything that you know about running fire departments and putting out big fires. I imagine it's substantial, and that not only could chiefs around here use it, but chiefing is probably pretty similar all around the world. And this, how do you think would be an effective way to pass accumulated wisdom, perhaps through an AI program where we literally, create an environment for you to download everything that you know, probably not with a physical probe in your brain at this point, but, through asking you a lot of questions so that we could train an AI that could then be a resource to future chiefs.
It's really interesting, Steve, because even when I was working as a chief, I did not always go along with the flow. I had differences of opinions. In California, we have actually in the world, there's a group called the Metropolitan Fire Chiefs. Have you heard of them?
I haven't.
So it's the 120 or so largest fire agencies in the world who choose to participate, and they gather once a year for a conference. And all the presenters are current chiefs. They don't invite experts. They have to be a current fire chief. And even among that group, there's a lot of differences in opinions of how things should be done. Of course, everyone has
Which is good, right?
Which is good. You're able to take the good and discard the bad. In California, there's a group of about 12 chiefs. So we have the California Metro Chiefs who meet quarterly. And even in that group, huge differences of opinion on how things should be done. The bigger the agency, the more expertise they believe they have and that they're doing everything the right way. I've never found that to be true. In fact, the bigger the agency, frequently the less likely they are to change. They like things the way they are. I'm not banging on anybody, but Los Angeles Fire Department has never had an external fire chief. How do you get change in an organization without different thinking? And in my opinion, fire departments on occasion should recruit from the outside to have someone come in and evaluate what is being done. I used to laugh. I was actually asked by the city of Los Angeles to apply for their chief's job. And it was the person in the city who was dictated that she would make this decision. And I laughed at her and said, there is no way you're going to get a fire chief from the outside. The union won't allow it, and the chiefs won't allow it. And she said, okay, let's assume you're right. But what if you did become the chief? What's the first thing you would do? And I said, well, I'd turn the organization upside down, and see what fell out of the pockets. And whatever fell out of the pockets that didn't appear to be being done correctly, I would discard and look for better ways to do those things. The things they do well, great, leave them in place. But not every agency is doing everything well. And unless you have someone with some outside experience, you really don't know what it looks like because you're so ingrained in the way you've always done things. And if I've heard that 1,000 times, I've heard it 10,000 times. We've always done it this way, Chief. And I said, I know. And every time you've done it in the past, it's been incorrect. You need to change the way you think by looking at alternative methods for accomplishing the goal that you're setting out to accomplish. And as much as people don't want to hear that, when they experience the change and see what it brings, their eyes open and they go, holy crap, I didn't realize this was an option. So even though there are forums for this sharing of information, many times advice is not accepted or even encouraged. So I only do it when I'm asked. I don't offer my advice.
Well, there's a How to Chief book sitting between your ears.
Could be.
And I think maybe I'd love to help free that book.
Okay.
Or whatever format that takes. When you talked about changing organizations, are you talking more or equally about changing the structure of the organization or operational procedures or both?
Both.
And when I say operational, I mean, in the field, how we put out fires.
Well, that's a whole different question. So organizational structure to me is very important. Everybody needs to know where they fit in the organization. And I'm sure you understand the whole concept of span of control. If that gets out of whack, things are going to fall through the cracks. And so to me, just as an example, the most important job for a fire chief is very simply grooming a replacement from the day you walk through the door. What I see in the fire service happen every day is I used to get them I was recruited all the time. We need new blood. We need a fire chief who's done it. And the first question I ask is why? Have you no one inside who can do this job, who's been prepared for the job? No. And so an inherent problem in fire service organizations is the state's retirement system. So a firefighter with 30 years experience is probably going to retire because if he stays longer than 30, they're working for nothing. They could get the same pay if they were retired almost. And so as firefighters go through the ranks, I mentioned, I didn't tell you, the reason I was the chief in Anaheim for 16 years is I was promoted to fire chief at age 34. I was the youngest fire chief in America. It doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. And I'm not saying it was because I was good. It just was circumstantial that I ended up being the chief at a really young age. And I put 14 chief officers from Anaheim as chiefs in other agencies because I constantly was churning the guys below me to get ready to take my place. I refused to leave without one or two people ready to go. So the city manager didn't have to do a recruitment. They always do anyway. But in Anaheim, the guy that I told them they should hire as the chief was the chief. After he was done, he didn't do what I did. And so they went outside, and it was a disaster because they got somebody who wasn't really designed, at least principally, to be the fire chief in Anaheim.
I see.
When I left San Diego, I had two candidates, and I said, you can pick either one of these. They'll both do a fine job. And they did. They picked one after doing a national recruitment again, which I'm okay with. But my point is, for an organization to succeed, I think the people inside the organization need to know there's a future for them, and what is that future? They're going to work really hard if they think that they have a chance to move up and achieve their career aspiration, perhaps of being a fire chief. And even if they want to go to another state, I didn't care. I said, you want to be a chief, you come in and we'll plot out a learning program, if you will, of how to get there. I don't know how many fire chiefs I've never met one. I had a 3-prong class for all fire, doesn't matter the rank. If you want to move up through the promotional system, I'll teach you how to speak, oral skills for doing public speaking, because everyone needs to know how to do that, and nobody knows how to do it because they don't teach them. They teach them how to put fires out, but they don't teach them how to pass an interview, how to pass a panel interview, and how to write for success. Firefighters and cops are 2 of the worst groups ever for their grammar and spelling and punctuation, everything. So I had a 3-pronged process where I taught everyone who wanted to move up. It was voluntary, but they almost all did it, how to do those 3 skills. And I said, if you ever become an office chief, so you're on the administrative staff, if you can't write effectively, I'm not going to be happy. In fact, what you'll get for the first year is documents you create with red ink all over them. And I'm going to first teach you how to do it. And if you don't catch on, I'm just going to mark them as wrong and let you figure it out. Anyway, those are simple skills that nobody bothers to teach fire guys, and they need to.
I'm so happy to hear you say that. Just personally, I've gone on to careers in many different areas, but my degree was in writing and literature with a Shakespeare major, and it's not that Shakespeare really has any influence on the businesses I did, but being able to formulate your thoughts and express them clearly, both orally and written, is essential to being able to communicate what you want and what you need and what you expect, so that you can get people on the same page with you. Because if they're not on the same page with you, you don't have a team. If you don't have a team, your prospects are pretty limited for what you can accomplish.
Well, if you're standing before a political board, which is what I did for a living for 20 some years, if you cannot articulate what it is you want and be persuasive in your articulation, chances are you're not going to get what you want. I'll never forget, I was trying to change, I won't even mention the agency, but trying to get them to do aerial firefighting at night. It's the largest wildfire in California history. I mentioned the Cedar Fire in 2003 became the largest wildfire in history because nobody flew at night in San Diego County. And a 5-acre fire that was easily containable turned out to be a monster of 290,000 acres, or square miles, or the footprint. And it could have been nothing. So in another agency, I was trying to push aerial firefighting at night, and one of the board members said, that's a recipe for disaster. He said, I'm a pilot, and I know how difficult it is to fly at night. I said, I get it, but there are risks that are worthy of venturing into if you do it with the right safety precautions in place. And I said, I will assure you, we will not fly at night in the wrong conditions. And we'll take every safety precaution known to man in aerial firefighting and apply those. And he never liked it. But I told him, I said, what you won't want to be is the person who denies this effort only to have 4 months from now a wildfire go out of control at night because you chose not to do this. You don't want to be that person. If I were you, I would approve this and encourage us to use every safety measure known to man. Well, we got it passed, and to this day, they fly effectively at night and have never had a mishap. So, but again, had I not known what I was talking about and been persuasive about doing it, it probably wouldn't have passed. If I'd have collapsed out of concern that my boss was telling me no, but I didn't. I got right in his face and said, no, you're wrong. This needs to happen, and you'll be happier for it in the long run. And we got it.
That was brave of you.
Well, I always laughed and said, you know what? I didn't need this job. I don't need it today. I'm going to do the right thing. And that's one of the best pieces of advice I would give. And I didn't always have that the brave approach like that. When I was 34 and a brand new fire chief, if I had been, and I was an at-will employee, which meant the city manager could say you're done at any time. That's kind of scary because I'm in the pension system and I want to see my pension to an end. So there's a little bit of risk there. I'm going out on a limb. But after 5 years, I developed a reputation of being a straight talker and knowing what I'm talking about. And therefore, the braveness level increased. I just said, you know what? If I get fired here, there will be someone who will be willing to take me on. So I'm just going to do the right thing. And it's hard to get there, but once you do, it's so much easier. So much easier.
I love that about your career.
Thank you.
That you made the strides that you made by being you, not by being political.
Well, politics will get nothing but in trouble. Politicians change. Principles don't.
Right. You didn't play the game. You played it smart. And
I think so.
And I can see, just in the lack of wrinkles in your forehead.
Oh, I've got them.
The biological ones, but you don't look like someone who is stressed because they said things they didn't believe or went along with policies that didn't feel right to them. You spoke your mind and you were assertive about it. And, ultimately it proves out you were right about these things. And now the things that were so outlandish that you fought for are common practice.
In one of those agencies, I had a group who thought I wasn't doing what was in the best interests because they liked the old way. And I finally got so fed up. I said, you know what? You guys think you're so doggone smart. You run the place. I'm done. I'm out of here. You do it. Good luck, because you're wrong. But I didn't need the job.
Yeah. Right. That's a great position to speak from.
Yep.
So let me ask you about Steve Conboy, who introduced us. And, he's got a company and a product, Mighty Firebreaker, which is a mineral salt-based fire retardant that can be safely applied to vegetation. How did you two get together? And, I know your opinion is not for sale, right? You are a straight shooter from day one. So how did you come together and how did you become enthusiastic about what Steve is doing? And I know it's not just because his name is Steve, even though that is in itself a good reason.
There was that. It's actually a pretty funny story. Steve was interviewed by the San Diego newspaper, the Union Tribune, and I read the article. And I as a long-standing fire chief, I believe I wouldn't swear to it, but I think I've seen damn near every product that's ever been invented because they want to sell them to the big fire agencies. So I read his claims about his product. And I contacted him and I told him who I was. And I said, you just need to know, I think you're full of baloney. Nothing will do what you say this product will do. And he said, I like challenges like that. How about we have coffee and I prove it to you? Great, you're on. We met for coffee and he told me, and I said, I still think you're full of baloney. He said, okay, let's go out somewhere. We went to a location and he said, let me show you why I believe what I do and how it works. And this was 6 years ago. And from that day till today, I have been looking for what is wrong with his product, and I've yet to find it. His outlandish statements were, in fact, pretty accurate. I will honestly tell you, I have not seen the product at work in the natural environment for which it was intended and developed, because fire agencies to date don't use it. They don't believe it either. They don't even believe me as a former colleague. I told them, I said, I have put this to the test. Try it. And very few to date have done that. The few who have tried it have seen that it actually does do exactly what it says, but they still haven't embraced it. There's one exception to that. You know, I was the fire chief in San Diego, and one of the interesting, it's almost karma. One of the kids that I hired 20 years ago is now the fire marshal in San Diego. And I talked to him about that, saw him and talked to him about this product. And he said, that's interesting. He said, if you're telling me this product works, I'm all in. I wouldn't believe it if I hadn't heard it, but I believe what you are telling me because I know you, and I know you wouldn't tell me. Steve, for years, tried to pay me to work for him. And I said, no, I don't want to be a paid spokesperson. I want to do this because it needs to be done. The world needs this product. The fire service needs this product. But I don't want to be taking your money. Otherwise, I'm a paid spokesperson. And I'm not. I want to be a spokesperson who believes in what I've seen and who wants to see others believe what I believe. Eventually, they will be the first fire agency to have this product. He loves it.
And it's so. What was it that you heard Steve say in that news coverage? That
You can spray it months in advance. You know, this stuff will stop fire in its tracks. It's harmless to the environment. So those are three things right there. Nothing else is harmless to the environment. Why is yours? The other ones claim they stop fires, but in effect, they might partially slow them down, which is what a retardant does. It slows the progress down. Steve's product is not a retardant. I don't call it a retardant. I call it an inhibitor. It literally stops fire in its tracks. It's the damnedest thing I've ever seen. And that really is the key. And to be able to use it in advance, this product can be used months in advance. And the only thing that takes it off vegetation or wood products is heavy rain and UV rays. So you could spray this in August here in Southern California, and by a wildfire in October, it'll be just as effective as it was in August. No other product.
How many inches of rain does it withstand and still maintain the effectiveness?
We would never give that we don't know. There's no way to quantify it. But I'll give you an example. Have you ever seen a dead Christmas tree burn?
Sure.
So it takes about 10 seconds to consume a dead Christmas tree.
Right.
Every year on the first week of December, my wife and I buy a tree that's a fresh living tree that's cut. I cut the bottom off to enhance the water absorption into the trunk of the tree, and I spray the entire tree. It takes about a quart bottle of this product to spray the tree from top to bottom. At the end of the month of December, I take the tree down and I put it out in my yard. Last year we had 20 inches of rain, one of the heaviest rainfall years in decades. So it was out in the rain, it was out in the sun, and in April, I take it to Steve's place and we try to burn it, and it would not ignite. It will start to ignite, but it puts itself out. It doesn't free burn like a dead Christmas tree would. So I can't tell you what the amount is. All I can tell you is that it will withstand some. How much, we don't know. But the bottom line is chances of getting rain in a wildfire environment between August and the fall usually is minimal. But if it rains and you're still concerned, reapply. Not hard. Reapply.
Right. That's it. Yep. Yeah. And you're also somewhat unique among retired chiefs, in that there are chiefs who are willing to go on the payroll of a product and be its spokesperson and forego the neutrality that is so important to you?
Well, to be totally honest with you, that was my position. And I said, if this ever takes off, remember what I did for you. Remember that I was there for you. I took him to training centers around the Western United States. I introduced him to colleagues, former colleagues, and told them that they need to be doing this. And now that it's becoming more of an official business, Mighty Firebreaker is, I plan to be compensated, but I didn't do it. I'm not doing, I don't care if I ever got compensated. I'm doing it because it needs to be done.
Amazing. So tell me about its application and unique usefulness to you as a wine grower.
First, on the application, to me, what's unique about this, number one is this is the only fire, I'll use the term retardant, even though I don't think it's a retardant, but it's the only fire retardant that the EPA has ever deemed to be safe to the environment, completely safe. It's so safe, the EPA named Mighty Firebreaker a partner of the year with the EPA. Nobody else has, and in my opinion, I don't think they will because of the chemistry. They will not pass EPA tests for all of the many things they evaluate it for. Water table, fish kill, wildlife kill. I just don't think that any other one will. And so this product can be applied without fear of harming the environment. It can be applied on vegetation. So if you hear people talk today, most fire agencies, Firewise councils, fire safety councils in neighborhoods, all they talk about is removing vegetation, remove the fuel. With this product, we agree that fuel needs to be thinned, not removed, and then apply this product to it in the event of a threatening wildfire. You can use it, wildfire threat or not. You can still apply it. I'd recommend in the mid to late summer you apply it, and it's good for the rest of the year, most likely. But it's easy to apply. We've now developed systems that will be installed on homes that are automatic. So we have AI involvement with smoke detection that will automatically turn these systems on in the event of a wildfire. And all it does is spray coat the home and the surrounding vegetation with this product, and then the system shuts off. Very little water. You've probably seen home defense systems that are water-based, and they turn on the sprinklers and let them run. They might run for hours. This one, you don't do that. They might run for 5 minutes, and then it shuts off because you run out of the product. But the intended targets are coated with the material. And this material actually works better dry than wet. And that amazes people.
I was just going to ask you, how long a drying period does it need before
in a
it's
hot,
effective?
dry environment, it'd take an hour. I mean, it's very quick.
Okay.
Anyway, so the application is relatively easy. There are multiple ways to apply it. Take too long to tell you, but there are many, many different types of application for this product. But you probably also are aware of the insurance crisis in California for sure. Many of the big insurers are no longer writing homeowner policies because of fire. So what is a homeowner to do to protect their most important piece of property, and probably the biggest financial burden they have is to make sure that they maintain that. So we're working with insurance companies so that they understand that if this product is applied, these houses are much more likely to be saved. We're not going to guarantee it. But if you can guarantee, or if you can apply this product on an entire group of homes, not just one, as a fire approaches, you'll have very good protection, and those homes would then become insurable again at a reasonable insurance rate. So we're working with the insurers to help them understand, and I can tell you, I won't tell you who, but I can tell you every one that we've spoken to is blown away by how well this product works, because we demonstrate it for them, and they can't believe it. I couldn't believe it. So I understand why they can't believe it. But I think it's really the future of home ownership in California. I have many friends whose insurance has been doubled and tripled, and they just can't afford it. So the money it costs to install this system on the home, if you look at what potential insurance decrease on the premiums could be, it would pay for the system in the first year, and every year thereafter is money in your pocket.
Gravy.
So it's not only a great product, but it's a great time for this product because of the insurance crisis. And I truly believe, and this is where I'm getting to where I'm coming from. I feel so badly for people. My house has wild vegetation all around it. I have a system installed on the back of my house, and on the front, my front yard is my vineyard. And I have a system on the top 8 rows of the vineyard that in the event of a wildfire, those will be coated with this product. But it's a solution that is coming, and I truly believe in the near future it'll be the answer that people are looking for.
I think having that EPA endorsement is huge. I thought you were going to tell me, you told Steve he was full of it. He said, let's meet for coffee. You guys had a coffee. And he said, by the way, you're drinking it. We made coffee with it, right?
When we do these demonstrations for people,
yeah,
he puts 2 clear glasses. And one is full of water without ice, just water. And the other one is full of the product. And they look identical. You cannot tell the difference. So this product, people always ask, I put it on, do I have to take it off? No, you don't do anything. The only thing you'd have to do if you sprayed your entire house with this after the fire is wash your windows, because there might be some haze on it. But it's easy to get off. Some of the gels and some of the other fire retardant products that have been used, you can't get them off. It's miserable.
Yeah, the gels particularly.
Yes, they're really hard to remove. And the other downside of a gel is they dehydrate after you apply them. They have to be rehydrated. This product, not only do you never have to touch it, I have tanks of it on my property that feed my exterior systems. You never have to touch the product. It never falls out. Mine are 6 years old, and they look just like they did the day in the tank, just like they did the day they were installed. You don't have to go mix them. You don't have to add water. You don't have to do anything. It just sits there until it's needed. And I don't know of a product out there that does that.
Yeah, most of the things have a precipitate you have to agitate them and mix them and then administer them in, using dosimeters.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is so simple.
So if we were applying Citratec over huge areas, I don't want to ship, a bazillion gallons of this stuff. Is it possible to get it as a concentrate and then mix it on site with local water?
Absolutely. What we do is put the powder form of this product in a container, say a 275-gallon plastic tote. So it's shipped to your property. You are shipping the weight of the tote, which is plastic. It's not that much, right. To your location. And then you add water to the top, and you have to mix that the first time just to get it all blended, and then you're done. So the shipping is inexpensive. We also, we track everything that's shipped out of our facilities to where the property that it's intended for. So there's a tracker on it, and we make sure that it gets there. We forbid people who buy this property to resell it. It is not for resale, and it is not for other people to dilute to spread into a wider area. It's mixed exactly the way it needs to be applied, but it's shipped in a way that you're not paying for the liquid weight. We're also in also in conversations with other areas so that we can have a blending facility, for example, in Canada. So they don't have to ship from the United States. But we want to make sure that it's done per our requirements. And we are the only ones who can authorize a new facility to do the actual blending on site. We believe we'll have lots of those over time.
That's that sounds necessary.
Yes.
One of the strategies with regard to wildfire that I think is particularly important is evacuation route hardening. Right, you got the warning, you jump in your car, and before you know it, there's fire in front of you and fire behind you, and a tree fell across the road, and now people are dying in their cars. So Team Wildfire's technology is essentially, I think of it like a nuclear-powered spray can on wheels, even though it's not nuclear-powered; it's a jet engine. But I understand that a lot of these vegetative retardants, particularly MFB, are best applied through atomization.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I am personally interested in experimenting with is feeding a stream of Citratec into the exhaust of a jet engine that is being driven down the side of a road, with jet engines fanned out in both directions, laying out a 500 or 600 foot wide swath on either side of treated vegetation, so that when people need to get out, they can.
We so look forward to doing that with you. We have imagined, I'm sure you know what a hydroseed truck is. So
Yes.
they pump a liquid that has seed in it that will eventually become some kind of flower or some kind of growth that is meant to retain raw hillsides. And our thought was fill those with a mulch with Citrotech and blow them out on evacuation routes. Your concept, to me, is brilliant. And we hope that we're able to try it in San Diego to tell San Diego, thank you for having the guts to be the first. And let's show people that evacuation routes can be created so that people leaving their homes don't fear dying in their cars. The Cedar Fire I mentioned to you in 2003, we lost several people in their cars trying to evacuate because there was no way to prevent fire from encroaching upon the narrow roads they're trying to use to get out. The concept of blowing it through a jet engine, I can't wait to watch. I'm just a little kid at heart. I want to see this. And so we look forward to it.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it as well. And I see, either an engine blowing out the right side or drive it down the center of a road and do both sides at once.
That would be ideal.
And I'm guessing the answer to this is testing.
Yes.
But do we have any data right now on what micron level coverage we would have to have on vegetation, or each gallon treats X amount of square feet, so that we could anticipate, what the consumption rate would be as a truck drives down the highway?
Yeah, we have that. Steve
is
an amazing scientist. He's the inventor of this product. He's gone through, when we met, I told Steve there are going to be doubting Thomases everywhere. I was one. You're going to find that it's deemed too good to be true. Go get your certs, get your patents, make sure the EPA make sure everybody who has a concern about wildfire retardants gets a peek at this and has the ability to test it. And that's what he's done for the last several years. To his credit, he knew that it was going to have to be sooner or later. Are you familiar with what's called the Qualified Products List of the U.S. Forest Service?
It's a very small book.
It's a really small book. And initially, we were told it's going to cost you a lot of money and 2 years of your time for us to even test your product. Well, Steve got frustrated with that, to be honest. He said, I'm not paying that much money. I know the product works. I've done independent lab testing. But I told him, I said, Steve, you have to do this. I know it's uncomfortable and it's time consuming, but you have to do it. So we're at the final stages. We've blown through every test. We're going to be listed eventually whenever they get tired of testing it. We're going to be listed. And when it is, and not until it is, can the U.S. Forest Service or CAL FIRE or any of the large agencies will not use the product unless it's on the QPL. But it's coming. And so when that happens, there no longer will be an answer that we can't use your product because it's not on that list. And that'll be a milestone.
And so the current restriction of it not being on the QPL just bars the product from being used with certain agencies, but it certainly doesn't bar the product from being sold to agencies that don't require QPL, or to private landowners, or to paper growers, or to vintners, or
that's absolutely correct.
From that, is that
yes.
right?
And that's what I told Steve. The fire department market is going to be delayed because of that. The homeowner market is where this product is needed the most. We're doing evaluations daily on property owners who either had insurance and lost it, or builders who want to build new homes and cannot get building permits because of fire concerns. That is his market. And until you get, for example, a new development, can you imagine if every home in the development is protected and the area around that home is protected, so that when a wildfire approaches, it stops before it even gets to the houses? And embers are, as you probably know, are the key to stopping wildfires, and the key to starting new ones is almost always ember driven. But if the home tract that's in the way of the wildfire is protected with this product, embers are not going to be an issue any longer. And that fire is going to stop at that line. Why not allow people to build if they do it correctly? And that's the direction we're going.
Right. No, it's kind of like people shouldn't go in the ocean until you invent scuba, and then it's fine. Go in the ocean all you want. Right. You're just taking the right technical measures to make what you're trying to do safe.
And that's why it's so exciting when people see this work. Their jaw drops. They go, how does it do that? I'm not a scientist. I don't know, but it does. It works.
Well, that's what matters, right? Is that it works, and that it's safe, and that it's reliable, and it's really all you could hope for. I'm guessing that you would issue a warning to people. Yes, this will keep your vegetation from burning, and yes, applied regularly, onto the exterior of your home, it's going to render it, less of a fuel source. But that does not mean that you don't need to do ember ingress protection, right? That
what's interesting? That's such a good question. Someone must have prompted you, but when we do these systems on homes, we don't just do the spray. We start with the bones of the house. Houses like mine, I've got 13 attic vents on my roof. And those attic vents face the direction of the threat to my home. So when embers happen, they're going to find their way. We start with hardening the home before we ever do the system to spray. And we only allow general contractors to do the installations. So this is not a homeowner thing. It's done and we train the contractors. I just did a training class this past week in Sonoma for general contractors. And they then will go out and bid the jobs and do the jobs, and only do them per our specifications. What the insurance companies want to know is, are these being done the way you want them to be done? And how does the insurance company know they're done correctly? We sign off on it. Part of the installation requires 2 annual visits by the contractor or a rep from the contractor to go to the house, water test the system to make sure it's pointing in the right direction, and look at any new risk. Maybe the homeowner put a stack of logs for his fireplace right next to the house. We tell him you can't do that. We have a whole list of things that the homeowner has to do in order for us to say, we accept you as a risk, 1 through 10 risk. You're a 4. low
So
risk.
they can't put the logs next to their home unless the logs have been treated with Cetrotec.
And then they won't burn in the fireplace. So
Yeah, right. But it looks good,
it
right?
looks good. But anyway,
Yeah,
that's the assurance that the insurance companies want, that whatever we have done is not just done once and then forgotten. That's
right.
part of the deal. We do 2 annual checks and resprays if necessary. And by the way, the product isn't cheap, the material, but if you buy the product on the original install and you use it, we will then refill that at almost at cost. So it's not overly expensive for the homeowner to have to fear using what he'd already paid for. It's almost too good to be true, Steve.
Well, I imagine as the business grows and you develop massive cash reserves, you'd be in a position like the people who sold me my bicycle lock in the 1980s. And they said, if this lock gets cut and someone steals your bike, we'll buy you a new one. And boy, if you want to put the insurance companies in a great position, you say, if this house is properly treated, certified, and the certification is maintained, if it burns down, we'll replace it.
And we've done that. And they're telling us they're willing to do that. But only if, and that's where all of our ifs come from. And there's a long list.
Yeah.
But we're telling the homeowner, you're the one who can't get insurance. If you want to get fire insurance, here's the solution. And they're not overly expensive. It's just a matter of not doing certain things and making sure that you do certain things.
I see. Well, I'm imagining that if you found the QPL process intimidating, wait until you try to become a co-insurer.
Well, we know. We've been meeting with the big guys.
All right. Well, I'm super excited about this. I've got some product outside that we're testing right now as well. And we're testing it, for the jets, for smaller jets, for the larger jets, and for different gas backpack fogging systems.
Well, the really cool thing for you about testing, you can do your testing with water, and it will be the exact same outcome as Citrotech.
For distribution, but not for testing for effectiveness.
No, effectiveness. It's the same. You wouldn't know the difference between Citrotech and water.
Right, until you try to light it.
Until you try to light it, yes.
Right.
So you could test your jet theory with water.
Which we do, yeah.
Without wasting the Citrotech, and you'll have the same end result. What you want to do is find a place, and this is where we've looked, find someone who's got 100 acres and they want to do a controlled burn.
Yep.
Let you spray your jet over the left-hand side of the burn on the upwind side and light on the downwind side and let it go to where you sprayed to validate that your concept has merit. And
well, I don't know if that'll be the first time we meet, Jeff, but that's definitely one of the places where we're going to meet.
I hope so. I truly do.
Yeah, me too. We're going to do this together.
Good.
Well, we've reached the top of the hour, so I'm going to reschedule with you because we're going to do a whole hour together on how to be a better chief.
Okay.
Lessons from a 3-time winner.
I'll have to write some notes for that one.
Okay. I'll give you a week. 2 weeks. How long do you need?
Wait till I'm done pruning.
Okay. When you're done pruning, then we'll do that. How to chief better.
Great.
Awesome. Great. Well, this is Chief Jeff Bowman. Thanks so much for joining me on the Fire Break today.
My pleasure, Steve. Thanks for asking.
Well, what a fascinating hour. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did. You've been listening and watching the Fire Break right here on Fire Break Network. There's really no such thing actually as the Fire Break Network. It's just teamwildfire.com/podcast is where we're found. But thanks for spending this hour with us, and we'll see you at the next episode. Take care.